Thank you, Mr. President. Senator King, I'm glad you got a break because you deserve a rest because there's a lot more questions to come, not all from me, fortunately. Senator King, are you familiar in the context of the Voting Rights Act with the concept of racially polarized voting?
Generally.
And I know you've said that you're not here to argue a case as a lawyer, but you do recognize that that's part of the Voting Rights Act and that these maps will be subject to scrutiny under the Voting Rights Act in the courts in all probability, yes?
I'm generally familiar with the concept, yes.
And as to the rest of my question, you're also probably generally familiar that maps of this nature are challenged in court, yes?
Redistricting maps are always challenged in court.
I'll go with always. I was going to say routinely, but you're probably right. As I understand it, in the redistricting trial that recently concluded in El Paso, Texas, there was evidence that the Attorney General's office, the Attorney General of Texas, has a system of analyzing racially polarized voting. Are you aware of that?
I don't have any personal knowledge.
Have you ever heard that?
No.
So you don't know, obviously, whether the Attorney General's system, if it exists, of analyzing racially polarized voting was employed in these maps.
I know that we did not rely upon any counsel or seek any counsel from the Attorney General's office with regard to HB 4.
To be clear, then, you're saying that the Texas State Attorney General's office was not at all involved, not at all consulted in the drawing of the maps that are before us today?
Not that I'm aware of. I can tell you that they did not give me any independent legal counsel.
Okay. You've said multiple times, and I think probably justifiably with some frustration, that you did not consider race in the drawing of these maps, correct?
Correct.
And that question's come up a few times, so I won't ask it. Doesn't the Voting Rights Act require consideration of race at some level?
Well, the Voting Rights Act, I think, protects every district in Texas. It applies to every district in Texas. And, I mean, obviously, since it prohibits any discrimination of minority groups in the voting process, in the electoral process, then yes, it would have to be considered in doing a legal analysis.
Thank you. And my understanding of the Voting Rights Act, like yours, is not advanced. But what I do understand is that when it considers racial discrimination, it looks both at discriminatory intent and, in the absence of intent, a discriminatory effect. Is that also your understanding of the Voting Rights Act requirements?
That's my general understanding, that intent and effect have been discussed and considered in case law over the years.
And so if these maps were drawn with no regard to race, solely, as I believe you've stated here and has been stated in the House, solely with the intent to elevate Republican partisan performance in elections, and there was no consideration of race, is there a possibility that there's going to be a legal consequence for failure to consider race in the context of maps that are going to be subject to scrutiny under the Voting Rights Act, because historically they've come into existence under the Voting Rights Act?
It's hard to answer a hypothetical. I can just tell you that, and I know I've said it before, and please forgive me if I sound repetitive, but before I considered this map, I asked that it be reviewed by counsel in which I had a high level of confidence to make sure that it was legal in all regards. And I was assured that it was, and that of course included all aspects of compliance with the Voting Rights Act.
So legally okay under the Voting Rights Act could take us into the gray area of the concept of a coalition district. Are you familiar with the term coalition district?
Yes, I generally am.
And what is your understanding of a coalition district? And I know we're not law professors here, but it matters.
Well, generally, it refers to two groups voting as a single class.
Two groups, put in other words, with politically cohesive interests. Would you, fair statement?
It's probably generally correct.
And historically, the legal context in which the concept of coalition districts has arisen is when two or more typically non-white, referred to as minority groups, are politically cohesive, and together they constitute a single political voice. And yet, there may be a group of typically white voters who have a different political direction, and the coalition district would serve to enable the two or more racial groups which comprise that group to elect candidates of their choice, where absent the coalition district, they would otherwise not. Does that sound like a fair characterization of whether or not it was the future of the law? It at least has been the law up to this point.
I would say that's probably a generally good statement, but again, I'm not a redistricting attorney. All I can tell you is that I'm confident that every district in this map complies with the VRA and complies in light of Petaway.
And a group of attorneys have said that to you, and you trust their judgment.
Correct.
Is it your understanding, based on conversation with those attorneys or anybody else, or just your own idea, that so long as in drawing the maps you look only at partisan political performance, race is irrelevant?
I'm not sure that race is ever irrelevant because the VRA is never irrelevant. And the VRA is designed to protect different voting groups. But I believe that it's well established under law that maps can be drawn for the purpose of political preference, political performance, and frankly, it's personal experience, or my understanding is as well, that it's really very easy to draw a map when all you're looking at is political performance.
Is it your intention, and the intention of this bill, to, through a series of judicial appeals, eliminate the concept of coalition districts from the law?
I don't have any intent at all with regard to coalition districts from one perspective or another. My only intent is to make sure that this map complies, that it currently complies with all law.
You stated earlier that at least one of the districts under the new maps is more compact. Is it also more politically cohesive?
I haven't looked at any racial data.
Is it more politically cohesive?
How are you defining politically cohesive?
Where racial groups, or where actually really just the constituents of that district, vote the same way, where the minority groups in that district vote the same way, as opposed to a different way.
I haven't looked at that because I haven't looked at any racial data.
Okay. Last segment here. In North Texas, where I'm from and where Senator West is from.
And I'm actually from there too, so.
And where you're from, Senator King, I apologize. Of course. Between Tarrant County and Dallas County, do you have any reason to doubt the statistics that I've obtained that say that those two counties have increased in population by 547,000 people in the last 4 or 5 years?
That certainly sounds right, particularly Tarrant County.
What I've also been told is that 90,000 Anglos moved out of those two counties. And any reason to dispute that?
No, I wouldn't know either way.
They're just numbers we're both going off them. I have reason to trust them. But if 90,000 Anglos left and 547,000 people came in, and at least 500,000 of them were non-Anglo, I'll represent to you that that's the case. Would we expect there to be more or fewer districts that consisted of a majority-minority voters?
So my understanding is that you can only draw a redistricting map off of the preceding decennial census data. And so this map is drawn not off estimates of years since 2020, but it is drawn directly off of the 2020 census data.
And I just want to understand what you just said, that if you're drawing maps mid-decennial, much as I detest it, you can't use current data. You have to use the decennial data when you're conceiving of the maps?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Even if the effect is to shift the proportion of representation for a smaller ethnic group in favor of a ethnic group that is shrinking and in the disfavor of an ethnic group that is expanding.
I can only speak with reference to this map, but it is my understanding that this map completely complies with the VRA and all other applicable law, and I presume that would be obviously with regard to discriminatory intent and effect that you mentioned.
Okay, thank you for this dialogue.
Thank you.